There we go, live once again.
Back
Troy
once
Francis
again
in
with
London.
Renegade.
Yeah, Troy Francis in London, James Tuskin, Odessa. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. It's feeling very shelly overhead. No, I'm just joking. It's fine. You won't be able
Yeah,
to tell there's anything happening here. It's
yeah,
the streets are paved with golden Svetlanas, as they say. There's lots of hot feminine women here, and yeah, it's good to be here. Peak of summer. It's an awesome place to be. I think
yeah,
we need to think outside the box a bit with dating and just see it as a market and put yourself where you're slightly more scarce. You just have more options. It's really economics, isn't it?
yeah. Well, it is. Although, people just have such a hard time with that, don't they? I mean, they have a hard time with everything, but they have a really hard time with, oh, you're playing on easy mode, and why aren't you in Birmingham and all this kind of thing, which is just obviously ridiculous. But
Well,
that's
no
the
one
same
actually
with
doing it, talking about that, is it? It's the guys sat literally where they were born who don't have the balls to even leave their hometown or city that always
yeah,
try the crabs in the bucket, pull down the people willing to do something different. But I mean, I was watching a clip from popped up on Instagram. Jim Rohn, who was the mentor to a load of the kind of modern gurus, the Joe Dispenzas, the
Hmm.
Tony Robbins, and he was saying, look, one of his short clip, I realized life was inherently risky and we're not getting out alive. It gave me massive freedom just to be like, well, I've got nothing to lose with whatever I do. And what I'm not saying is black and white thinking, start, doing a River Phoenix and hitting speedballs every day. But
Although you could.
yeah, I mean, nothing wrong with it, right? But yeah, just be willing to understand your own physiology. The brain is a survival machine. It wants to keep you safe. It's always going to stop you going out the comfort zone because it's built for survival, not for fun and not for leveling up. Be aware of your own programming and do stuff that pushes you. David Dada in his book, Where the Superior Man, talks about leaning into your masculine edge. So just always slightly out of your comfort zone. I can't see any harm in living like that as a modus operandi.
Well, I mean, you've exemplified that incredibly well. Me less so because I'm sitting with my dear my age in London, but
Well, you say that, but
nevertheless,
you still 99% more than anyone else I know. In fact, bar
yeah,
me, will travel more than anyone else I know. So,
yeah,
you know,
yeah, for sure. I mean, there's different seasons in life, and I've got various things on here at the moment, but yeah, I mean, I think in general, leaning into your edge, and sort of, well, I don't know. I mean, there's just so much sort of backward thinking in this space, isn't there? Because there's dudes who are just so tied to the sort of what they think was the status quo 15 years ago. We had it yesterday. We did a stream yesterday. We were talking about this stuff, and guys are like, "Oh, we were talking about taking her to nice places," and dudes were like saying, "Oh, that's cheating. That's not proper day game. Take her to Weatherspoons and all this." And it's like, I mean, come on, you've got to move with the times a little bit, And also, there's a means to an end here. We're not doing this to win the greatest game award. We're doing this to get to a specific end game, right? And you've got to think, okay, what are the steps that I could take that are more likely to get me to that, right? It doesn't really matter what they are.
Yeah, I agree. And all is fair in love and war, as they say. Really,
Yeah.
Navo Ravikant, who I like the content of, he's not going to set the world right with his banter, but makes Les
Yeah.
look like a former king, Navo Ravikant. He does say the only success metric in life is figuring out what you truly want across the board. It can be one thing, it can be multiple things. And then did you get the thing? That's all really, because it's you versus you. So
yeah,
if you're happy with your dating life, then don't watch our content and don't take on our suggestions. But if you're not,
yeah.
and you're doing this and it riles you, there's probably something in what we're saying that hits close to the bone because you need to change something. I would argue.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of these guys who are sort of come on and they're trolls, it's sort of like, well, why are you watching then? If you're genuinely against the message and you don't think what we're saying has got any water, holds any water, then why are you here? Really, there's a lot of better ways to spend a Thursday afternoon. To be fair, So one of the things we were keen to talk about today, I've called this one "Myth versus Reality." Why you must curate your life. But we talked a lot about the importance of stepping into an archetype. And there were guys yesterday who were saying, well, how do I know what my archetype is? Or how do I know what archetype to step into? And we had sort of started talking about this. I always think it's a little bit of an odd question, really, because for me, I think it should be pretty obvious because you must know who you admire and who you think is cool.
Well,
And
gun to your head, what would you say you're using that system? What would you say your
well,
go-to?
so for me, it was pretty straightforward, really. I'm an English guy of a certain age, and I speak
Yes.
in a certain way, and
Yeah.
so it would sort of be, it wouldn't if I said, right, my archetype is 50 Cent, I'm really going to lean into 50 Cent. It would sort of be incongruent, although there are aspects of 50 Cent that you could lean into, because he did that book with Robert Greene and everything else. The hustle and hustle or die trying type idea is something that I could lean into. But as an archetype, it's going to be quite difficult. But something like, Daniel Craig, the English gentleman abroad, it's pretty easy for me to lean into. So it's just, okay, so how could I play that character, which is quite sort of in my ballpark, but to the best of my possible ability. So I think, but also as well, I think the other thing that I've always liked is contrast. So it's like, okay, you could wear, I really like suits, we talk a lot about this, about, nice clothes, tailoring, all that kind of stuff. I really like all that. But can you have a bit of an edge as well? So maybe you've got some tattoos, but you've also got a suit. So it sort of scrambles the message a little bit. So I think that's it for me. I think it's like not leaning too far outside of what is plausibly you, but making that the best that you can, and also thinking, okay, so how do I mess with this a little bit? How do I sort of make it a bit more interesting or exciting?
And did you? I mean, when you kind of decided, right, that's my archetype. Would you actively take traits from, for example, Daniel Craig's James Bond, and then try and amalgamate them into yourself and just method act those, or would you almost pretend to be him? Just to give guys a point of reference about what they should be doing with their particular characters.
Well, I think there's a whole load of different people that I would probably look up to, and I've sort of taken little bits of each of them, including like the clothing, right, the way that they come across when they walk into a room, the way they hold eye contact. So I've probably taken little bits from different people, including like movie stars, but also probably people in real life as well. And so is it a conscious thing? I mean, at the beginning, it wasn't really. At the beginning, I wasn't basing it on role models. I was basing it on, I just want to act like because remember, cocky funny was always a big idea, wasn't it, in the dating space in the early days? And I always sort of thought, right, I just want to be that guy. So how would that guy act? And it wasn't really a specific person. And then later on, when I got more confidence, I started to think, okay, well, there are guys out there who are dressing in a certain way, they're acting a certain way. Maybe I could just take little bits of things that they're doing and use them myself. So it was a fairly organic sort of process for me. But the way that we're teaching it to guys now who've maybe reached, their late 30s, their 40s, or even their 50s, and they haven't done this, maybe there's a way we can speed it up. But maybe a way to speed that up is to say, all right, take Daniel Craig. What does he wear? How does he speak? How does he hold eye contact? And sort of more or less consciously copy those things for a period of time until it becomes natural. Maybe that's just an easier way of doing it.
Yeah, so I think you take, for example, if guys resonate with Daniel Craig, James Bond, I'd say, right, what's his archetype, right? He's a self-amused, grounded, dominant alpha male. That could be the archetype. That's the identity you're feeding it through. And then what's the behaviors that stack up? So what's the emotional home? What's the vibe you kind of come back to? I would say it's self-amused, relaxed and grounded. So relaxed, calm, self-amused, and act like nothing bothers you. So unbothered. Those are the attributes that you want to almost instill. Like you drift out, you're in your head, you come back to that repeatedly. That's your emotional home. That's how you act, right? So you go into a situation, any social situation, you're self-amused, you're relaxed, you're calm, and nothing really phases you, right? And if you just drill that into your nervous system, because that's the behavior you're propagating, you actually just start to become that person. So it's really like method acting the character, but being clear about what character is. Some guys will prefer to play the kind of more devil may care Tyler Durden, right? You can even flip it on a night out. You could be more of him on a night out where it's a high energy situation, and then you could be, I'm not talking about the pickup guy, but the actual guy from Fight Club. But then in a normal social situation, you're more the kind of chilled, relaxed, slightly stoic, dominant frame, self-amused Daniel Craig. But it's a clear idea of how to act case by case. And something you can do as well is there's a clip from a guy who talks about life being a mind game. He goes, imagine every scene and you play it masterfully. Whatever the scene is you enter the gym. You don't need to be Tyler Durden in the gym. What's better? Headphones in, phone on flight mode, absolute beast mode, almost pretend you're this fucking, alpha warrior going around pulling, crushing the weights, full beast mode. Right. Next scene, you're in a coffee shop, you're chilling with some friends. What's the best way to play this scene? How can I play this scene, play this game the most beautifully if this is just a game, right? And it's probably being relaxed, a bit social, a vibe lifter, you know, that kind of vibe. So we're state shifting depending on you've got the initial kind of thing you always come back to, the emotional home, which is calm, grounded, self-amused, relaxed. But then each scene, depending on what it is, you're playing it slightly differently, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so exactly. And that's an important point, isn't it? Because sometimes guys will they come into the online space, they read a bit of theory and they think, right, I've got to be super alpha all the time. And that makes them behave quite strangely, particularly when they're in the company of other guys.
We won't mention his name, but a fellow content creator, when we finally met him in Bogota, very bizarre, because we'd had a bit of back and forth with him, and he, you know, we'd got on well, me and him particularly. We didn't know each other that well. You knew him better than me, but I remember him coming into the bar. It was just the middle of the daytime, and he was like, you know, handle the show right. Listen up here, I'm the fucking guy. It's just like, dude, you've read too many books about thinking you've just got to act alpha. It's just not calibrated, right? It's weird. I think trying to be calibrated with this mysterious word calibration. What the fuck does it mean? It's basically not being a total fucking weirdo.
which is pretty hard. A lot of the time.
Especially
for myself.
Well, no, it is, especially if you are trying on new roles. You know, you've got to be, because when you first start going out and flirting with women, it's not comfortable, and so obviously it's out of your comfort zone. It feels weird. You're not getting it right most of the time. You're fucking up. You have to be prepared to fail forward and realize, okay, everything's a feedback mechanism, and just give yourself a bit of a break, right? Don't beat yourself up too much as you're developing.
Yeah, you know? But that's why I was saying I think it's a good strategy not to push yourself too far, not to push yourself to a role that is completely the opposite end of the spectrum to you, because if you do that, you're probably going to trip yourself up. You know what I mean? Like if you're trying to be Arnold Schwarzenegger and you're nothing like that dude, right? You know, you're, I don't know, scrawny. You've got a lot of work to do physically to get anywhere. Not you wouldn't get anywhere close to that, but even to get anything approximating that, you'd have a lot of work to do. It's going to be very hard to inhabit that character. So why not inhabit a cool character who's a little bit closer to you that you can pull off? But I mean, in saying that, of course, it's not just physical, is it? It's not just physical. It's not just. I mean, yeah, you could be working on the physical stuff in the background, but you should still inhabit that role anyway. So, but I think it's got to be within your reach, if that makes sense. I don't think you should, or am I is this a limiting belief? Because on the other side of the coin is maybe guys should be trying to push themselves.
It's a good point. Hold on. Can you still hear me, or have I faded out?
Yeah.
What was I going to say? I mean, look at someone like King Cole. You could argue he's playing almost this mythic alpha male, like the Dwayne Johnson, wasn't he? In it, but his appearance is small Indian dude who hasn't made it as a doctor, broke with no money. These women were almost having this visceral reaction to him because it was so out of the ordinary. He was so confident. He had such self-belief. So it's a hard one. It's a hard one.
There's different ways of looking at it, but I think in the beginning stages, I think there's a danger of overthinking this stuff. That's the real issue. And if you've got too many things going on in your head at the same time, because you're thinking, oh, what is the model? You know, what's the conversational model? And then you're thinking, oh, but I've also got to play this character. It's almost overcomplicating, isn't it? And you don't want to overcomplicate it because the most important thing is that you're going out and taking action, right? That's the key thing. So in a sense, that trumps everything, because however you're doing it is better than not doing it. I think James has dropped off now. I seem to be just on my own on the stream, which is fine. If anyone's got any questions about this topic and you want to put them into the chat, please do. Hopefully he'll come back in a bit. We got a comment here from El Chef Guevara. Says, hello guys, great to see you both together breaking down humanity's most pressing topics. I think he's being a little bit trolly on a Thursday afternoon. It is a pressing topic. Because people's dating lives, people's romantic and love and sexual lives are one of arguably the most important aspects of any human being's life. You know, it is literally a matter of life or death, because how you relate to other people and whether you procreate or not, if that's what you want to do, this is super important stuff. So actually, ironically, we are talking about something that's incredibly important. But you know, I can understand. I can understand if he's being a little bit humorous there. But yeah, I think the archetype that you create for yourself, I think, so as not to overcomplicate it, so that you don't get stuck in your head, I think should be sort of on brand for where you are anyway. You should be sort of on brand. You shouldn't be trying to push it too far and confusing yourself. I was just talking about this guy's comment here. Oh no, actually, he's saying he's not trolling. It was a
Oh,
joke
okay.
because he said, great to see you both together breaking down humanity's most pressing topics. And I was just arguing, well, it is a really pressing topic because actually, dating and mating, arguably, it's a matter of life and death. It's kind of one of the most important things of any human being's life.
This stuff is important.
Yeah. No, he wasn't
right. Just to go back to what you were saying before about the overthinking part. Look, it's so important because the theory about this is so interesting, right? We've long both been fascinated by the theory around mating, dating, psychology, influence.
Yeah.
I've tried all of this stuff. It's so, and now with the boss in play, ChatGPT, it's incredible, isn't it?
Well, yeah, we can get into that in a minute, but carry on.
But the point being, I think, yeah, you want to just decide your character. So think Tyler Durden from Fight Club, right? Act as if. How would he do that? He'd go out, he'd be flamboyant, he'd be devil may care, he'd be vibe lifting, having fun. Step into that role a bit each day until you start to really assimilate that as just a behavior. I mean, with the famous example of you reinventing yourself, going out to the London clubs back in the day, and you would step into a role for a couple of hours and just be the arsehole, playful arsehole in the club. And you saw the only difference was, well, the thing you were doing was actual behavior change. You couldn't sit there theorizing your way in the corner, being like, oh, if I look alpha, women will just think that. No, you have to go and act it, don't you? It's act as if, the key thing.
Yeah. And it's a really powerful thing. And actually, I think that book, what's the book about the ego? The
Alter Ego?
No, the book about
ego is the enemy.
There's only real the one where it talks about Beyonce stepping into the Sasha Fierce.
The alter ego effect.
Yeah. Yes, the alter ego effect. So I think that book, he really makes it very simple, doesn't he? He says this doesn't have to be, you don't have to do 30 years of therapy. You don't have to sort of, uncover your inner child or anything like that. Really, all you've got to do is think, okay, I want to be a bit more like that guy, and then act as that guy would. Really, I mean, that's kind of what it comes down to.
Is that pretty much the premise he says?
Well, he says that, I can't remember exactly how he expresses it, but he sort of says you don't have to overthink it. It's not as complicated as we make it. It literally is a question of saying, okay, I want to be, when I go out tonight, I want to be a super social guy who's not afraid, who just talks to everybody, who's not afraid of rejection, who just goes out and does it. And you could literally just behave in that way. You could literally just behave in that way. But the way to do it is like you said, to remind yourself that there are no consequences really. I mean, there might be in some kind of extreme situation. Maybe somebody takes offense to what you said, but for the most part, 99.9% of the time, nobody's going to care. You're going to act how you act. Some people are going to buy into it. Some people aren't. Maybe you get rejected a few times, but a lot of people are going to love it. And that's it, And then you go home at the end of the night and then you can switch off, And then you can just go back to being, you can have a bit of a rest. You can go back to being the introvert if you want. And then the next time you go out, you turn it on again. It's really more simple than guys think, I think.
I agree. And something that helped me is just saying call it the just pretend game. So, right, I'm just going to pretend to be a flirty fucking Craig Ferguson motherfucker for the next 2 hours. Right, and have fun with it. Enjoy it. Don't take it too seriously. Know you're playing a role. Know that it's a role, but that's just all of life is we're playing a role. We're not the same around. We're not talking the same as we would around our grandparents, right? If they were still alive. We're not talking the same as we would do around a nice, hot Eastern European girl on a first date. Yeah. You're playing a role either unconsciously or consciously. And what we're saying you should do is consciously play the role, depending on the situation, to the best of the ability to get whatever you want most out of that situation. Yeah. So the role in the gym is flight mode, headphones in, motivational music, beast mode on the weights, right? The way to play it on the street is, or just day to day is go out, social situations, be a vibe lifter, go into the coffee shop, banter, tease, practice that relentlessly. And then when you see a hot girl, not a big deal to say hello to her, test for interest.
Yeah. I think, well, maybe what I'm trying to say then is the way you do it, you've got to play to your strengths a bit as well. So if you're naturally a bit of a quieter, sort of more brooding character, it's going to be hard to do a complete 180 on that. So maybe you're like that, but you just have to turn up the volume a bit. Whereas if you're naturally extroverted, but you never talk to women because you have a mental block around that, you've just got to do the same thing that you do with guys, but turn it on to women and make it a bit more flirty. So maybe it's sort of, you know what I'm saying? Like, we've got clients who are pretty serious and stoic, and those sort of guys, they're not going to become the Russell Brand figure, but they don't need to because they've got their own strengths. Whereas if you're tending more towards the Russell Brand, you talk, you're verbally funny, you can come up with things on the fly. If you lean more into that, you're a lover, not a fighter, then maybe that's more your lane. So I think it's identifying, okay, so where are my strengths? And then just utilizing those to the best of your ability.
Where did you find difficulties most when you were playing this role in clubs, for example?
Yeah.
And then did you find where were the kind of pitfalls you identified as, that was quite challenging to get past when you're kind of method acting this new version of you? Or was it all relatively plain sailing? It was just a case of building it up bit by bit. So transitioning to stuff and then turning it off at home. And then eventually just kind of, this character. Because when I met you, I've only known you as quite a smooth, suave, guy who gets this stuff. I never saw the transition, a Thailand version of you, before when you're a woman. So, how was the actual journey for you? Were there any kind of pitfalls for guys to be aware of? Is it just a case of repetition and train your nervous system?
Well, the pitfalls, I think, first of all, you've got to be somewhat strong to rejection, I think, at the beginning, because obviously you're going to try this. Sometimes it might come off as a bit incongruent because you're getting your training wheels, and you've got to be prepared. If you say a joke and it falls flat, okay, so what? You've got to be prepared. So that's the first thing. You've got to inure yourself to rejection or to negative feelings. But the get out clause you've got, of course, is to say, well, but I was just putting it on. I was just doing an act. So they rejected that version of me. They rejected the slightly heightened version of me. But so what? Because that wasn't even the real me anyway. And I think when you're somewhat consciously playing a bit of a heightened version of yourself, you can let yourself off with more mistakes because, it is a little bit of a performance. The other thing is that further down the line, what you're going to get is probably feelings of incongruency between what you think you are and the way people are treating you. Because I went very quickly from being very down on myself, very insecure, all the rest of it. And then suddenly people were treating me in a totally different way. And there are those sort of pinch me moments of like, oh my God, I can't believe people are buying this stuff,
So imposter syndrome almost.
Yeah, the imposter syndrome. So with that, you've just got to kind of ride it out. You've just got to kind of you've just got to take it, accept it as it is in the moment. And then later on, you can chuckle to yourself and go, oh my God, I can't believe they bought that version of me. But as time goes on, the version start to catch up with the version that you're presenting, and then you become that character. So
it's like you're saying for the Instagram stuff, isn't it? Fake it, this high value guy, and then eventually, because you're faking it, women get drawn into that thing. You have to step into that role and actually start living that lifestyle. It's kind of like that, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And I think, again, just the boring old advice, but I mean, just making yourself repetition, and just making yourself insensitive to it. So, and you can still do this now. I mean, anything that you find slightly intimidating, like maybe going into high-end places or, how to conduct yourself in a place where there's a lot of high-value people around. Put yourself into those environments as much as you can, and you become more and more used to it until, in the end, it becomes second nature to you. But I think some people they have more work to do than others. But really, exposure therapy is really the key to it, I think.
I would agree. And I think, just you get to a point, don't you, sometimes with this stuff where you just are bored of not getting results. And regardless of whether you like the idea of stepping into a new character, which for a lot of people, including me, and I think for you was exciting, some guys are like, it doesn't feel like me. That's fine, but everything will feel like you once you do it enough times, because everything's outside your comfort zone then becomes in your comfort zone. If you're currently you and you're getting no results with women, you've got to change something, because the world is not going to change for you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, why is this important? I mean, would you agree that some of the people that we work with, great guys, but they're not really setting the world on fire, and that is kind of the key problem.
In what sense? In charisma? You mean les-wise?
Yeah, just yeah. I mean, just lack of there's just not enough going on, and if there's not much going on, then why are women going to buy into that? You know?
You mean their life is quite boring, or they don't showcase their life very well?
It could be both. Either they're a bit boring in themselves, or their life is a bit boring, or their life is actually quite interesting in some ways, but they're not showcasing it sufficiently. They're not marketing themselves well. I think it's a bit of both.
I think it's both. Yeah. So what was the question?
Well, I mean, so if people were challenging us and they were saying, well, you're encouraging guys to be something they're not, or to pretend to be someone else they're not, what would you say to that? Because for me, I think it's more about, it's not, firstly, we're encouraging them to level up and to live a more interesting life. So that's the first thing. But secondly, it's also about the presentation. And the presentation is really important, because if you're the most interesting man in the room, but you don't tell anybody about it, you don't show anybody, then you're still going to go home with your D in your hand, aren't you? So I think leveling up a bit in terms of your presentation is super key, and not necessarily inauthentic either.
I would agree. I mean, game is the way to showcase you as the product, isn't it? It's showcase the kind of toy on the shelf to the world. You have to show yourself in the best possible light. Perception is reality. We always talk about this, but I mean, I need to stop going on about Instagram, but Dan Bilzerian absolutely hacked the system. He was not getting results with women, and he talked about that in his book, to be fair to him. And he basically hired 7 models and started creating content. And it's not even really a reality. Right? He wasn't banging these models, he's paying them. But he creates content, puts it out online, and women just buy into a narrative. And then suddenly he is the guy with hundreds of DMs throwing house parties, but he wasn't that guy to begin with. So there's always going to be an element of fake it till you make it. Yeah. And especially with this stuff, I went from had never been on a date with a girl, sober, 23, left university, 24, and I was like, right, I've got to do something else, right? I'm not comfortable speaking to women sober, and definitely not comfortable, expressing intent. I've got to do something here. And when I went out to do the day game boot camp with John Matrix and Tom Torero in London in 2012, it was a massive leap of faith, and it didn't feel like me. I felt like a fucking weird dude, but after 500 reps, I felt pretty comfortable. And after 1,000 reps, people were coming up to me going, man, you're like a natural. I'm like, I'm fucking not. I'm not. I've just learned to be competent, right? Confidence is situational competence. As we know from talking to some of these clients we're going to be seeing soon in trainings, they can be incredibly competent in one area of their life and then incredibly incompetent in an area they haven't practiced much and they don't understand.
Yeah.
So I would say, yes, you're going to feel fake, but what do you want in life? Because ultimately, again, goes back to Memento Mori, we're all going to be dead soon. In 80 years, everyone watching this, including us and anyone else, is not going to exist. So why the fuck does it matter? Live how you fucking want to live, right? And go after things you want to go after. And if it is traveling the world, chasing loads of women, flirting, having crazy experiences, having sex with young, hot women, then do that. And if that sounds terrible to you, I don't know what would, but if it does, just don't go with it, right?
Yeah. Well, you get to design your own life.
You're the creator. You're the director and the viewer, right? And the participant at all times. It's very meta, but you need to be taking conscious control of that process and not just being like, oh, let's see what happens. Let me just play the paper bag in American Beauty and just it will work itself out. No, it doesn't work itself out. That's not how it goes.
Yeah, you have to create it, and the good thing about fake it till you make it, and we're almost talking about a process of visualization here, aren't we? Because when you were talking yesterday about the Instagram stuff and creating this glamorized sort of heightened version of yourself on social media, we were saying it becomes almost like a sort of vision board. It becomes you're portraying a certain character, which might be slightly beyond where you are now, but as you do that, it becomes your reality. And without getting too woo-woo about it, because I'm not completely on board with like the secret and manifestation and stuff, but I do think there's a lot in it. Actually, I do think there's a lot in if you can imagine it, you can become it. And again, it comes back to what kind of life do you want to be living? Because if you want to be living a life where you're living in Leicester and you're going down the local shopping mall once a week and talking to a couple of porkers in Tesco's, that's fine. But is that really the height of your ambition?
I agree, and actually thinking about that, so that
I don't know if Steve Jabber's watching, but You know.
Well, no, his was, I think, something like Scunthorpe. No, that was someone else. So I've been posting some statuses like meta content and, you know, me at hotels, in a sports car with the hot blondes. What that's actually made me do is now start dressing up in a suit and going to very high-end venues, because I'm now thinking, right, content lens. But ironically, with the idea of getting cool content for a narrative, I'm actually starting to play more of that role anyway. So I completely agree.
Yeah.
You've got to, you want to fake it till you make it, but you actually then want to do the Sasha Fierce thing, the Beyonce thing. I've actually done it so much, you start to become that guy, because it's a more fun lifestyle to live. And it's, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you live by high standards if we can, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I went to a high-end place yesterday, actually.
You love your high-end places, to be fair.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I went to there's a new Rosewood in London called the Rosewood.
Rosewood, it's so good. It's so expensive. 19 quid for a bottle of water.
There's a new one called the Rosewood Mayfair, and it's in the old American Embassy in basically in Mayfair. So I popped in to just to check it out, have a cup of tea and stuff, and just feel the vibe. So I went into the ballroom, and there was all these sort of lots of like sort of Arab kind of guests there, obviously incredibly wealthy, whatever, you know, these people sitting around. I rock up and I'm wearing this jacket. It's a really nice Hugo Boss jacket, actually, but I bought it in Catford for £7. And then got it sort of tweaked. So
I'm sitting for £7. I mean, wow.
Well, I just did second hand. So I rock up in my £7 Catford jacket, and you know, but I'm not saying this to. I mean, it's not any great achievement, but I feel relatively comfortable in those kinds of environments now. So I can sit there, and probably nobody takes none of these people. They probably just think, oh yeah, he's probably staying here. In fact, a couple of people did think I was staying here because I walked out the wrong exit, and the manager and a couple of the staff were there. And they go, "Oh, sir, are you staying with us tonight? How are you finding it? Blah blah blah." And you know, and is that really my milieu? Well, not really. I mean, it's a top 5-star hotel. I mean, it's beyond probably where we would normally stay when we travel, although we like nice places. But can you fit in that environment? Well, yeah. Can you credibly fit in that environment? And then, of course, you know, the value of that. If I was, you know, maybe I'll take the Mrs. Troy Francis, but if I was, you know, single and dating, that would be the kind of place I could take people to. And you want to make sure that you look like you fit. You know, and it's before people start talking, it's not about money per se. It's just about, are you a man of the world? Are you somebody with good taste who could introduce them to something that maybe they're going to find cool or interesting, you know? And if you're there sort of going, oh my, you know, and you're shivering in your Zara jacket, sort of feeling less than, that's not a good look.
No, I agree. And old Christopher Columbus was the biggest, great example of this, wasn't he? Robert Greene talks about it, but he was literally from the working class, and he basically method acted his way into just being in the highest royal circles to get his trip funded, and everyone loved it. He was like
Rasputin as well.
Rasputin's another, right? Hypnotic Rasputin. So
that's what I find really fascinating. Actually, it's more the dating stuff, but within the dating stuff, it's like, okay, so there's a sort of a system here. There's a social system. There's a social sort of like hierarchy. Although it's all kind of made up, really, and nobody really knows where anyone actually sits. So can we hack that system?
Well, just to jump into that, it seems to be a lot more pronounced in, say, the UK than it is in other countries, I've noticed. Because you've got that public school, boarding school. You've got different levels. You've got the council estate, right? You've got you've got where I went to school, which is a decent private school, Hampton, but it's not like an Eton with the top tails. But the class system is, people seem to be, I don't know whether it's because we're all from the same country, but maybe it's embedded for centuries. People can kind of assess class quite quickly, can't they? Whereas if you go to Brazil or Colombia, no one gives a monkeys.
Well, I think English people could assess other English people's class quite accurately. But of course, the reality in, say, London is it's very international. So I walk into that hotel, and half the people are Arab anyway. And then there's Europeans in there and stuff like that. So it all gets a bit blurred. Plus, on top of that, the social codes of like dress have all collapsed now, because a lot of people are just in there wearing tracksuits and stuff. You know, you've got these super rich dudes who are sitting in there wearing a t-shirt and a cap, baseball cap, who's probably, you know, his watch probably costs more than my apartment, right? You know, but so the whole thing of like, oh, this guy's wearing a suit, so therefore he must be wealthy, is sort of like not necessarily the case anymore. But you know, the reason I still wear the stuff is because I think there's value in looking sharp anyway, regardless of that. But the point is that the whole social sort of scene can be somewhat fluffed. I think you could give an impression of yourself as being maybe something different to how you actually are. And again, people are going to say, well, that's inauthentic. Why are you pretending to be something you're not? Well, it's not really. It's just more, I find it fascinating to think, okay, there's a system here, but can the system be inverted? Can the system be invaded, for your own benefit for various things?
I agree. I think it's more fun just trying to crack the system. And the reality is, look, women respond to a man in a suit. The best reactions I've ever had historically have always been when I've been in a suit, coming out of when I used to work in a city job in London, and or when I'm filming in a place like Warsaw. I'm in a suit. Women respond on a visceral level. There's a certain response if I come out of the gym, I'm wearing a tight black t-shirt, right, looking good, muscles are pumped up, whatever. But it's still not the same as from a suit. And I also know I look good in a suit, so that fuels this kind of self-belief in the way my inner vibe, my inner state as well. So I think dressing better is always the right move.
The reality is, despite the fact you've got multimillionaires sitting around wearing caps and hoodies and things, it doesn't really matter because the suit still has a code for status and power.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's still holds.
We're not going to pick up necessarily like wearing a Rolex is very much for like. I always think of it for like man porn. Like men might pick up being like, oh, he's a baller, I can see his Rolex. Women, if you're dressed like in a t-shirt and perhaps you got a massive like really fancy watch, they're probably going to naturally default just by glancing to the guy in the suit anyway. Still, they're not really looking at the watch, are they necessarily? So,
I saw a good meme. I saw a good meme about that today on Instagram. It was one of those ones with two captions. It said what you thought wearing a Rolex was like, and what the reality, and what the guy thinks is he's going to be surrounded by these women going, oh my god, he must be a millionaire and all this, and then what the reality is a load of dudes standing around going, oh, what year was that? Oh, that's really.
Well, it's like getting jacked from the gym, isn't it? We all think women are going to be preening us like that Diet Coke advert back in the day, where the kind of guy comes up topless and they're all like spitting out their Diet Coke. But the reality is, it's other bloke, Joe, who we both know, very very good shape. He says 90% of the time it's women, men coming up to him asking for selfies, being like, mate, you're in great shape. What stack are you and all this stuff? So it's just like, it's a bit like women thinking, what's an equivalent of women doing that? Like thinking if you get a really big butt, like you're going to be attractive or.
I'll tell you one example of this, which is probably to you is going to sound ridiculous, but my girlfriend has posed this question to me a few times. She said to me, do men notice if a woman's wearing expensive clothes or she's got an expensive handbag? And I said, no, absolutely not. Because, she's obsessed with, she wants an Hermes bag and all this kind of stuff, all that nonsense, and like Chanel and stuff like this. And she's like, but do men notice? And I said, no, I don't think they care. Men don't care. If you're wearing a summer dress from Primark that cost £5, that's good enough. Yes, I think so. That's an example of the.
I'd almost be wary if they're really well dressed. I'm almost a bit wary. I almost peg them as, oh no, they're going to be gold diggerish. It's going to be money oriented, right? So I actually use that as it's kind of a red flag for me.
Yeah, exactly. If she's there dripping with Louis Vuitton or whatever, then it's sort of you'd sort of might maybe think she's a bit what's the word, transactional maybe.
Well, definitely the apps I mess around on in Brazil. I'm definitely, oh no, Louis Vuitton is the sign of the devil. Ironically, I've got a Louis Vuitton bag, but it's fake. So I'm kind of fluffing the system within the system as well.
Yeah, but I think, okay, so here's a take on all of this stuff. So there will be guys, nobody's really commented yet, but there will be guys who are watching this seething going, but Nick Krause would never do this. This is inauthentic. What are you guys talking about? Blah, blah, blah. But the reality is that there are certain women who will just be inaccessible to you if you're not able to. It's not that you've got to give. It's not that you're giving them money or anything or taking them for expensive things necessarily, but you've got to at least understand this stuff. Because there are certain women, I've told stories on here before about people I've dated where they're not going to Wetherspoons. You know what I'm saying? Like it's game over if you're not prepared to play the game a little bit. Now, in playing the game, it might be okay. We're going to go for drinks in a nice hotel lounge or something like that. It doesn't mean, you're going to be buying her like a guy that we know buying them iPads and phones and things like this. But it does mean you've got to understand where they're coming from, the language that they speak, and what appeals to them. And often, unfortunately, those are the more attractive women. So I don't know if you can entirely escape the game by being a sort of 2012 purist, can you?
You can hack it somewhat, because obviously if you earn in pounds like we do and you go to places like Colombia, Brazil, Argentina, where women earn less, you can sit in a pretty top environment, and it's the equivalent of being in a mid-tier environment in the UK, for example. So there's ways of hacking it, again, leveraging your value. You're more attractive in these places anyway because you're the scarce asset, and you've got more money comparatively because of the exchange rate.
Yes,
but women are always going to be attracted to nice lifestyle, nice things.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean they're gold diggers, but why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you like good stuff?
Yeah.
I don't know. We've got a comment from old third 77 here.
I think it was Steve Jabber that said, if you're wearing suits, you're meeting birds from all bar one rather than Weatherspoons. Well, maybe.
He probably got that from us. I mean, all bar one's an upgrade from Weatherspoons, isn't it? In terms of the women, probably.
What's your guys' thoughts on going out for day game sessions after you get to grips with approaching initially? It always feels weird to be out of mind. Well, yeah, I mean, this is what we always say. I think that it is a little bit weird. I think yes, it's good to do at the beginning to get some reference experiences, get some experience, break through the approach anxiety. But I think after that, really, it should be more circumstantial. That's not to say that you can't go out for a walk like James does. Go out for a walk for an hour, and if you see somebody, obviously speak to them. But I think the idea of I'm going to go for this session, and sort of packing your Snickers and your energy drink and everything is a little bit it's a little bit odd. I don't think it's a great long-term lifestyle, really.
You have to do that in the immersion though, and the boot camps guys come on. Yes, you are approaching 2.5 hour sessions each day for 4 days, because you need immersion to just doing the reps and getting blown out, right? The point is to break back anxiety, so we throw you in 300 times over a weekend. But yeah, ideally in your everyday life, you just want to switch on every day, build momentum. I'm always just, kind of just any opportunity to banter with someone, at the gym, serving me my coffee. And then so when I do see the cute girl and I'm aiming for around 3 approaches a day, every day, I just take the shot, and it's not a big deal. It's really a preventative mechanism. So I'm not in my own head, and I'm just able to take the shot when I see that hot girl. And yeah, I'm going for a walk every day around peak time, 4 or 5 p.m. I usually listen to an Audible book or a podcast I'm not listen to, so I'm not focused on approaching. I'm just walking around doing steps. I've got a step counter, so I hit 8,000 each day. I just make myself do it. And yeah, I typically on that walk will approach 2 or 3 girls and get a number. And usually I'll go on 1 or 2 dates a week, and it's a very low cost, low maintenance system of.
Yeah, and I think that's fine, because there's other utility to that, because you're getting your steps in, you're listening to an audio. But like, if you saw nobody, it would still be a value. But
it's not about doing the reps. The minimal viable action for me is just take the walk, and then I happen to most days do 2 or 3 approaches. But I'm making it very unpressured in my head, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but I think making it a lifestyle, making day game a lifestyle, I think is a little bit odd after a certain point, I think.
You mean Curate style in the van, or you mean just the average going out doing sessions in inverted commas?
I think just both, but I mean, just going out and doing sessions, I think is sort of, I think you want to break the back of it so that you're able to be social and approach in different environments. But beyond that,
I think it gets weird if you're on your own and I got this point when I became obsessed with it in the early days, and I was going on dates, having to make up I had other activities to do, because all I would do is every day go out, or every other day go out and do 2 hours approaching. It was intense. That being said, if you're with a mate in a foreign place, like I've been with Joe here, he's left, but we'll go out, we'll meet and have a walk around for 2 hours, and we'll probably both do some approaches. I think if we're just having a chat, having fun, there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's weird when you're doing long sessions by yourself.
Yeah, it's circumstantial. It depends.
Because we'll often do it. We'll often, go and grab a coffee in the city when I'm back in London or somewhere else. We'll sit outside a nice venue, and we'll both, if there's a cute girl, we'll just do the rep. But it's not like but it's just because we're together. It's like, the pressure's off, and you're just having fun. You're shooting the shit. But if there's a hot girl, you just do the approach. Really, that's how we see it, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Good piece of advice here. Packing a packed lunch on a day game session can help with energy levels later on in the day, but avoid onions and tuna.
There's a topical quote from old Rainer Quarles here, which is actually quite prevalent to me and Les's proposed trip to Warsaw, because on a recent Reddit forum, basically what happened, posted a rejection video of me showing cold approaches hard, but calibrated. It's been taken out of context, posted on Reddit in Warsaw, in Poland, and people are going wild, going, this absolute dick. The point of the video was to show that you have to take the shot and you're willing to walk away. It doesn't matter if it doesn't work out, but it's been completely taken out of context. So yes, people don't understand it. And this has always been my modus operandi. It's not about banging a 17-year-old anally in the bathroom after 10 minutes. It's about facing your fears as a man and being able to walk out and speak to other human beings you find attractive without relying on dating apps or bars or clubs, right? That's what we're trying to showcase here, not anything sleazy. And women want to be met in a calibrated way by an attractive, confident guy.
So what was the main criticism then? Was it people saying you shouldn't be doing it in the first place, or people saying, "Oh, what a loser because you got blown out," or
just
or
like
a combination?
Just a lot of hate. Like I can send you the thread actually afterwards, but a client of ours posted it on a client group I've got, and it was just like, I think the general message is people just not really understanding it. They're like, that's harassment, and it's not. It's me just playfully going up, being like, "Hey, can I give you a compliment?" I've got a boyfriend and walking away. I mean, that's the level of it, right? But of course, we live in an angry troll world now where anything's taken out of proportion. I think the other problem is because Warsaw seems to be very saturated with girls getting hit on. I think that's kind of fueled the fire of, okay, people are pissed off because you do get, when you start off doing this stuff, you are uncalibrated. So you might push it too far in a conversation with the girl and she's just, leaves with a bad taste in her mouth. And unfortunately, that's the kind of risk of learning this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's still, fortunately, even in the Western world, it's still legal to go and talk to somebody and say they look nice and you like their style. I mean
that's crazy, isn't it, to say that? But it's like that's we've got to now, where almost people would push back on that, going, "No, you can't go and say someone looks nice with no attempted outcome." So I don't know. Oh, I'm not sure where Leon Troitsky has gone, but I will continue spouting into the great void until he returns. Oh, he's back. Okay, good.
Yeah, sorry about that. We might have to wrap up quite soon because they've got in the other room, in this underground boudoir that I'm in, they've got an event that they're starting. But we've got a few minutes. But
let's wrap it up. Maybe that's just any comments on that. I'll send you the post afterwards. But have you got any kind of thoughts on that about how?
I mean, I don't know really. I mean, the thing is, a lot of this stuff. It's any sort of online pushback people get is it's a storm in a teacup, really, isn't it? And I think as long as going up, having a conversation with somebody is fine. And if they don't want to have that conversation, okay, fine. She moves on, you move on, you both get on with your life. That's it, really. A lot of this online hate and stuff just sort of, I think people just enjoy getting angry a lot of the time,
I would agree with you. And again, I think you're not attached to the outcome. You see a girl you like, you go up in a calibrated way, just say, "Hey, look, I had to take my chance, right? I wanted to say you look good," and no attachment to the outcome. You're not doing anything wrong. I will stand by that all day long. Now, people can interpret that the wrong way, but if you're calibrated and you're willing to walk away, but you're being authentic because you have just seen the girl, you think she's hot, and you want to tell her, that's being a fucking genuine mad. Right? So there's no harm.
So he said, what would you guys do if they would say it becomes illegal approaching calibrated? Well, I mean, how do you? I mean, firstly, how would you define that? Secondly, in what legal territories are we talking? Because it's unlikely to be a worldwide edict, even if that did happen.
Well, I'll just head to another war zone, like I seem to do.
And I mean, I think a lot of the. I mean, look, the whole point of this is not really to be wandering around Starbucks on a Tuesday morning and necessarily, it might be, I'm in a private members club right now, right? So maybe I would meet somebody here. Maybe I was in a restaurant. Maybe I was in a bar. Maybe, God forbid, I was in a nightclub, And these are all places where the reason why, day game has become a thing and it gets filmed in the streets is because it's an easy place to film. That doesn't mean that's the only place it's possible to do it. What we're really talking about, forget the distinction between day game and night game. What we're talking about is social calibration and being able to approach in a social situation. And that can be a perfectly socially acceptable place. Like I don't know, like a bar, like a lounge club or something like that. I mean, people talk to each other all the time there. It's extremely unlikely to become illegal to talk to other human beings, I think. I don't know. I could be wrong. But even then, you should just go somewhere where it's not illegal. I think that would be the answer.
Why do you think there is this kind of weird thing about this? Because there's never pushback about some guy getting drunk and sloppily hitting on a girl in a bar, right? Why is there pushback about a guy going up in the day and just giving someone a compliment? And why is it
I don't really know. I don't really know.
Weirdos tend to do day game as a general thing, and I think
yeah,
but we may get attracted to that.
Yeah, I think so, probably. Yeah. What about this one? How long in an interaction are you testing for interest until you decide to continue or reject?
Well, you're throwing some testing for interest in the Robert Glover way of saying it, which I think he got it from a guy called Good Looking Loser, who would do more physical testing for interest, to go up and spin a girl and blah, blah, blah. But the way that Robert Glover teaches it, and we would agree with, would be you're going up, you're just saying anything to a girl you like the look of, and with no attachment to outcome. And is she high interest, i.e., she kind of opens up, brushes her hair, wants to have a conversation, or does she go back to her phone and go, oh, thank you, and just turn away? So, for example, you're in a coffee shop and you see a girl reading a book, you'd be like, that looks incredibly boring, that book, or that looks like an exciting book. What is it? And you're literally, that's all you're doing, throwing something out there. It doesn't even need to be hitting on her. And just saying, is she engaged to have the conversation or is she not?
Yeah.
That's missing. So it's pretty immediate, really. I wouldn't say, I would just go with what happens. So if your gut says she's up for it, push it a little bit further and be prepared at any stage for the conversation to drop off, and that's end of conversation. But if she's clearly not interested, phone back to the thing, doesn't want to have the conversation. That's it. That's testing for interest over. That's what testing for interest is. So it's pretty fast.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would agree. I would say the answer to the question, how long an interaction, is not very long. It's pretty. You should get a gut feeling. You should get a vibe almost immediately. Really.
Yes.
And after that, yeah, I mean, if she doesn't want to have a conversation, that's fine. That's her raison d'etre. You just move away and you just go and talk to somebody else. And you just get on with your day. I mean, you don't have to overthink it. It's pretty straightforward.
And where the black pill narrative is correct about looks, money, status, and where Good Looking Loser was also talking about the same thing, look as good as possible, is if you look as good as possible, you've got a good vibe, good body language, you're walking on the street, what will tend to happen is you'll get attention from women. And in that place, your testing for interest should be flipping the script straight away. So you can't be like that and not say hello or nice to meet you. We had a moment there. What's your name? And you can almost guarantee you're going to get into a conversation off that. She might be in a relationship, but if you're looking good and you're alert to the opportunities, you'll be surprised how easy it can be on an average day just to women pinging you, and you just go, that's them saying, right, they've opened you essentially.
Well, that's the other thing, because people talk a lot about cold approach, which I did a video saying it was a weird term and we should stop using it, but often it's quite warm actually, because somebody's looked at you and they've smiled or whatever, and then you just go and have a conversation. It's all quite natural, really. All of the stuff that you think it is, that you think day game is generally stuff that beginners have to learn in order to get comfortable in social situations. Afterwards, and even with us, we're talking a lot more now about sort of doing events and doing parties and bringing people to shared events and things like that. It's less about the sort of the weird aspect of it that you might think, and it's much more about just being social and that's why, going back to the thing about hotel bars and stuff like that, it's like, are you comfortable in environments where there are cool, sophisticated people around? So we're sort of ourselves, I think, moving away from, to some extent, what your idea of cold approach or day game might be, because it's not really about that. That's the training wheels, and it's, if you see somebody and they look nice and you think there's a vibe there, go and have the conversation. But equally, it's about transferring that into different environments where it is a lot more socially acceptable to have conversations.
Yeah,
and people are looking for it because it's a social situation.
It's about normalizing social interaction, seeing women as these playful co-conspirators who want to go on an adventure with a fun guy, right? Not they're the enemy, right? All this old school mystery terms of approaching, boot camp, wingman, set. It makes it very militaristic, right? Top Gun. No, it's like women are on your side, right? That's how you should see it. Not all of them want to play, but they're all open to the idea, and you're just testing for interest and finding girls that are down, like that, like your unique brand of weirdness with your backpack and your tuna and onion sandwich.
Well, it just makes it all very weird, and it doesn't have to be very weird. It shouldn't be, actually. It should be the most natural thing in the world.
Yeah, but it is, isn't it? It's the only, we're born, we reproduce, we die. It's more natural than anything else we do, So, including the clothes we wear. So we should be seeing it as not a weird thing, seeing it as a beautiful thing, going out, being playful, flirting with the world, having fun. And do that enough, and women will choose to be involved in that, to a degree.
Yes, absolutely. So on that note,
come to Bogota and come to Warsaw.
Yeah, so we're actually doing a training event in Warsaw in later this month, and then in Bogota in October. So if you're interested in either of those, drop me an email, troy@realtroyfrancis.com or info@jamestuss.com. And we will jump on a call with you and see if you're a good fit. That's it.
We'll do this again soon.
We will. Good stuff. All right. Cheers, guys. Thanks for tuning in. See you later.